At my son's birthday dinner, I found my seat outside next to the trash cans. My daughter-in-law smiled with contempt and said, "I thought you would feel more comfortable away from the main table." I remained silent, took my gift, and walked out without saying a word. Minutes later, she turned pale and screamed. There are moments in life where the air becomes heavy, where every second stretches like an eternity, and where you understand with brutal clarity that your own son no longer recognizes you as his mother. That moment arrived for me on a Saturday afternoon, under a clear sky that contrasted with the storm that was about to unleash in my chest. My name is Martha. I am 67 years old with hands rough from so much work and a back that hunched over, carrying not only sacks of ingredients, but also the weight of raising a son alone after life snatched my husband away. That Saturday was the 38th birthday of Michael, my only son, the man for whom I sacrificed every penny, every hour of sleep, every personal dream I ever had. The party was held in an elegant garden on the north side of the city. 60 guests, waiters with white gloves, imported flowers decorating every corner. I arrived with my gift wrapped with my own hands in terracotta craft paper I had bought at the market tied with a jute ribbon. Nothing fancy, but made with heart. Jessica received me at the entrance. My daughter-in-law, 32 years old, hair perfectly straightened, dressed in an ivory-tailored suit that screamed money, impeccable smile, eyes cold as ice. "Mother-in-law, how good that you arrived," she said with that syrupy voice she had perfected to fool everyone but me. Come in, we have everything organized." I walked behind her, nodding to some guests I did not know. Businessmen, colleagues of Michael, people drinking wine that cost $50 a glass, while I still drank pot coffee in the mornings. Then Jessica stopped. Not at the main table where Michael was laughing with his friends, not at the tables decorated with white flower centerpieces. She stopped next to the back door of the garden where the trash cans were covered with a tarp. "You will sit here more comfortably," she said, looking me straight in the eyes with that smile that no longer tried to hide the poison. "I thought you would feel more comfortable away from the main table. You know, with all those important people. We do not want you to feel out of place." The air left my lungs. 60 guests were laughing and toasting less than 30 feet away. My son, the boy I nursed for 2 years because I had no money for formula, was there celebrating his life, and his wife had just placed me next to the garbage. I did not answer. I did not scream. I did not cry. I simply pressed my gift against my chest, turned around, and walked toward the exit with my head held high. Every step hurt more than the last. I heard murmurs behind my back. Someone asked, "Is that not Michael's mom?" I did not look back, but just before crossing the wrought iron gate, I heard something that made me stop. A scream, high-pitched, full of panic. It was Jessica's voice, and she was screaming my name. If this story has shaken you from the very first line, do not leave. Subscribe to the channel Elderly Stories, because what comes next will change everything you thought you knew about respect, dignity, and the price some pay for underestimating a mother. Before I tell you what was in that gift that made Jessica turn pale, you need to understand who I really am, because she made the mistake of believing she knew my story. She thought I was just an old jam seller, a hillbilly mother-in-law without education or ambitions. She was wrong about everything. My full name is Martha Robinson, widow of Davis. I was born in a small town in Kentucky, where I learned to make preserves watching my grandmother work in a rustic kitchen. At 25, I married David, a good man who worked in construction. We moved to Chicago looking for a better future. For 10 years, we were happy in our modesty. We lived in a house inherited by my mother in a working-class neighborhood, nothing fancy but ours. David left before dawn to the construction sites. I took care of Michael, our only son, the gift that arrived when we had almost lost hope of being parents. Michael was barely 7 years old when everything collapsed. A Tuesday in October, I remember I had prepared pot roast for dinner. The phone rang at 3 in the afternoon, a male voice, professional, distant. Mrs. Davis, we regret to inform you that there was an accident at the site. Your husband. He did not finish the sentence. It was not necessary. David died because of a poorly secured scaffold. 35 years old, a whole life ahead, and he was left lying on the concrete while his co-workers screamed for help. The construction company offered us $10,000 as compensation. $10,000 for a life, for the father of my son, for my partner. I rejected them. I hired a lawyer with the savings we had. They gave us $50,000 after 6 months of fighting. With that, I paid for the funeral, the debts David had left unintentionally, and I had $10,000 left. $10,000 to raise a 7-year-old boy in a city that does not forgive. That night, after the burial, I sat in the empty kitchen. Michael slept in his room, exhausted from crying so much. I had 2 options: break down or get up. I chose to get up. I remembered my grandmother's hands kneading, cooking, creating. I remembered the taste of her strawberry jams, her pickled vegetables, her artisanal sauces. And I thought, this is what I know how to do. This is what will save me. I bought 50 glass jars, 20 pounds of fruit and sugar. I spent 3 days cooking without stopping. My first products were strawberry jam with a spicy twist and apple butter. I sold them outside schools, at farmers markets, knocking on doors. I earned $50 a day, sometimes less, but I did not give up. I worked 18 hours every day. I woke up at 4 in the morning to cook, took Michael to school, went out to sell, returned to cook more, helped my son with homework, put him to bed, and continued canning until midnight. My hands filled with burns. My back began to hurt permanently, but every dollar I earned was a step forward. Michael grew up seeing me fight against fatigue, against bills that did not add up, against suppliers who took advantage of a lonely widow. When he turned 12, he told me, "Mom, when I grow up, I am going to buy you a huge house so you can rest." I hugged him, crying. "I do not need a huge house, my love. I just need you to be a good man." I enrolled him in a private school. It cost me $500 a month that I did not have, so I worked double. He never knew that many nights I ate only bread with butter, so he could have protein on his plate. When he reached high school, my preserves were already known in several markets. I had developed unique recipes: peach jam with cinnamon spicy peanut sauce, chipotle marinades, with my special touch. People began to order from me by request. By the time Michael entered college, I already had a small rented shop. I had invested every dollar I earned into growing the business. I never spent on new clothes for myself. I never went to the movies. I never bought myself a treat. Everything was for him. University cost him $80,000 over 5 years. Systems engineering. I paid every tuition in full, on time, without a single delay. Michael graduated with honors. I wept at the ceremony wearing the same dress I had worn at my wedding, mended 3 times. He got a job at a tech company. Good salary, promising future. He hugged me the day he signed his contract and told me, "This is for you, Mom. Everything I am is thanks to you." I thought we had made it. I thought the sacrifice had been worth it. I did not know that 4 years later, a woman with a perfect smile would arrive to destroy everything we had built together. I did not know that my own son would leave me next to the trash cans on his birthday. But that afternoon, walking toward my car with the gift still in my hands, something inside me broke. And when something breaks in a woman who has survived so much, it can become dangerous. Because I was not the defenseless old woman Jessica believed she knew. I was a warrior who had fought 30 years to give everything to her son. And warriors do not surrender. They reorganize. Michael met Jessica 4 years ago at a business conference. He was 34, she was 28. When he spoke to me about her for the first time, his voice sounded different, excited, almost childish. "Mom, I met someone special. She is smart, works in digital marketing, comes from a good family. I think she is the one." I wanted him to be happy. After everything we had gone through together, he deserved to find love. So when he told me he wanted to introduce her to me, I prepared my signature stew from scratch. 3 days of work. I bought fresh flowers for the table. I cleaned the house until every corner shined. Jessica arrived one Sunday at noon. I remember her perfectly. She wore a fitted emerald green dress, stilettos, a brand name bag that cost more than my monthly rent. Her perfume filled the living room as soon as she crossed the door. Expensive perfume, sweet, overwhelming. She extended her hand without getting close to greet me with a hug, as is our custom. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Martha. Michael has told me so much about you." Her smile was perfect teeth, incredibly white lips, outlined with precision. But her eyes looked me up and down in 2 seconds, evaluating, cataloging, discarding. I saw how she noticed my rough hands, my short unpainted nails, my simple cotton blouse I had bought at the discount store, my comfortable shoes, and I saw the verdict in her gaze. She is not on my level, but she smiled. God, how she smiled. During the meal, she was charming. She praised the stew, asked about my business, listened attentively when I told her how I had started. Michael looked at her captivated, as if he had found a treasure. "Your mom is a warrior," he told her, holding her hand across the table. A true inspiration. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that this elegant, educated woman from a good family really admired my story. I wanted to believe her interest was genuine. But women who have suffered develop an instinct, an internal alarm that detects danger, even if it comes wrapped in silk and French perfume. That alarm rang from the first moment. The following months were a careful courtship. Jessica visited often, always impeccable, always kind. She brought me gifts, expensive hand creams. I never used silk scarves I kept in their box because I was afraid of staining them. "You deserve to treat yourself mother-in-law," she would say with that syrupy voice. "You have worked so much, mother-in-law." That is how she began to call me, as if it were an affectionate nickname, but the way she pronounced it. There was something there, something diminutive, something that made me feel small. A year later, Michael called me excited. "Mom, I proposed to her. She said, yes, we are getting married." My heart skipped a beat, not of joy, of fear. "Are you sure, son? You have barely been together a year." "Mom, she is the woman of my life. I have never been more sure of anything." The wedding was big, too big. Jessica insisted on a luxury hall downtown, 200 guests live, orchestra, 3-course menu. "It is just our special day," she explained while I looked at the budgets with a churning stomach. The total cost $80,000. Jessica's family could pay for it. Her father owned a chain of hardware stores. Her mother, a cold woman who looked at me exactly like her daughter did the first time we met, wore jewelry worth more than my house. But Michael wanted to contribute his share. "It is my wedding too, Mom. I want to feel that I paid for it." He did not have enough saved. He confessed it to me one night, ashamed. "How much are you missing?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. $30,000. I know it is a lot, but I swear I will pay you back. It is a loan, Mom, a loan. I had $40,000 saved. It was my emergency fund, my security, the result of 5 years of saving every extra dollar. I gave him the $30,000. "Do not pay me back, son. It is my wedding gift. Your happiness is the only thing that matters." Michael hugged me, crying. "You are the best mother in the world. I do not know what I would do without you." Jessica thanked me with a kiss on the cheek that did not touch my skin. "How generous, mother-in-law. Michael is lucky to have you." The wedding was spectacular. I attended with a dress borrowed from a neighbor, sitting at a table in the back with my distant cousins and some friends from the neighborhood. The Parker family table. Jessica's family was at the front, close to the bride and groom. During the party, one of Jessica's aunts approached to greet me. "So you are Michael's mom. What a nice boy. And how humble, right? With those origins, so simple." She smiled, but there was no kindness in that smile. That night, I understood something. For Jessica's family, I was not the mother-in-law. I was the uncomfortable reminder that Michael came from the bottom. I was the stain on their perfectly polished lineage. After the wedding, things changed. Michael began to visit me less. Jessica has many social activities, Mom. You know, dinners with her friends, work events. When they came together, Jessica started with the comments, small poisoned wrapped in laughter. Oh, mother-in-law, do you always eat with your hands like that? In my house, we were taught to use silverware even for pizza. Laughter. How interesting your way of speaking is. Your accent is so authentic, so country. Laughter. Michael, love, you should convince your mom to dress up a little more. I mean, just in case she ever wants to come to one of our gatherings. Laughter. Michael said nothing. He just smiled uncomfortably and changed the subject. I clenched my fists under the table and kept eating in silence. 2 years later, Jessica convinced Michael of something. My love, your mom lives in that house that is so outdated. Do not you think we should help her modernize it? I mean, if we ever want to bring our friends, it has to look presentable. Michael arrived alone at my house one afternoon. Mom, Jessica is right. This house needs renovation. Let me help you. We can change the living room, remodel the kitchen, paint everything. I do not have money for that, son. I will lend it to you. $40,000. I know a good and cheap architect. $40,000. $10,000 more than what I had given him for the wedding. I accepted. Because I thought it was his way of returning what I had given him. Because I wanted to believe he still cared about my comfort. Because I still did not understand that Jessica was not beautifying my house. She was erasing my history. And that was just the beginning of what I was about to lose. The remodeling began on a Monday in March. 3 workers arrived at 7 in the morning with paint cans, tools, and blueprints I had never seen. Jessica accompanied them. Good morning, mother-in-law. I came to supervise personally. I want to ensure everything is perfect for you. Perfect for me. Those were her words. The first thing they did was empty the living room. The workers took out every piece of furniture, every ornament, every photograph. I watched from the kitchen with a lump in my throat that grew with every piece that disappeared. Jessica, where are they taking my things? To a temporary storage, mother-in-law. Do not worry. When the work is finished, we will return what is worth keeping. What is worth keeping? The sofa where David and I sat every night to watch television disappeared. It was very worn, mother-in-law. We bought you a new modern one. The carved wooden rocking chair that had belonged to my grandmother disappeared. Those old things accumulate dust. They are not hygienic. The mahogany bookshelf where I kept Michael's school notebooks, his childhood drawings, his first grades, disappeared. We need space for a minimalist cabinet. Those things can be stored in boxes. But the worst came later. One afternoon, I returned from the market and found Jessica in my bedroom. She had in her hands my grandmother's embroidered quilt, burgundy with yellow flowers woven by hand. My grandmother had used it for 50 years. She gave it to me on her deathbed. So you remember me, honey, so you know where you come from. Jessica observed it with a look of disgust. What are you doing with that? I asked her, trying to stay calm. Oh, mother-in-law, I was organizing your closet. There are so many old things here. This rag is already unraveling. I am going to donate it to a shelter. Surely someone needs it more than you. That rag is from my grandmother. Precisely for that reason. It already served its function. Memories are in the heart, not in things. She smiled at me. You who are so detached must understand. She took it from my hands before I could react. Jessica, please. Mother-in-law, trust me. This is for your own good. You need to renew yourself. Let go of the past. My grandmother's quilt ended up in a black bag along with other old things. I never saw it again. 2 weeks later, it was the turn of the photographs. I had a whole wall dedicated to memories. Framed photos of my wedding with David, of baby Michael, of his first steps, of his graduation, of the 3 of us at the beach, the only family trip we could afford. Jessica took them all down. These photos are faded, mother-in-law, and these frames are so outdated. We are going to put up modern paintings, abstract art much more elegant. But they are my memories. You can scan them and save them digitally. That way they do not take up space. The photo of my wedding with David, where he looked at me as if I were the most valuable thing in the world, went into a box in the basement along with all the others. In its place, Jessica hung 3 minimalist paintings, gray lines on a white background, without soul, without history. See the difference? Now this looks like a magazine house. My house no longer looked like mine, but the hardest blow came one afternoon in April. I was in the kitchen preparing apple butter when I heard Jessica talking on the phone in the living room. Her voice sounded different without the fake sweetness. Hard real. "Yes, Mom, we are almost done. This house is going to be worth double when we sell it." No, she does not suspect anything. She thinks we are helping her. Michael does what I tell him. He is so in love he does not even question. Calculate that in 2 years we convince her to move to a nursing home. Something discreet, not too expensive. I froze with the ladle in my hand. The house is in her name still, but I am working on that. Michael is an only child. Eventually, it will be ours. In the meantime, we are eliminating all that sentimental trash. It is incredible the amount of junk poor people accumulate. She hung up. I took a deep breath. I kept stirring the apple butter as if I had heard nothing. When she came out of the living room, I smiled at her. "Everything good, daughter? Everything perfect, mother-in-law. Need help with that? No thanks. I'm almost done." That night, alone in my bedroom that I no longer recognized, I took out a floral notebook I kept at the bottom of my drawer. It was old with yellowed pages. I had used it years ago to write down recipes. I tore out the last blank pages, and I began to write. Date, time, what I had heard, word for word, because if life had taught me anything, it was this. Predators attack those who seem weak. But I had survived the death of my husband, poverty, 30 years of fighting alone. I was not going to let a pretty girl destroy everything I had built. Jessica made a mistake. She thought I was an ignorant old woman without education, without resources. She did not know that women like me are dangerous precisely because we have learned to survive in silence. I kept smiling. I kept calling her daughter. I kept allowing her to direct the renovation. But every cruel comment, every stolen object, every humiliation went into that notebook. And at night, while she slept peacefully in her fancy house, I planned. Because my son had taught me something unintentionally. Sometimes the best hit is the one nobody sees coming, and I was preparing mine. I just needed the perfect moment, and that moment would arrive 3 months later in an elegant garden in front of 60 guests. On Michael's 38th birthday, the day my daughter-in-law would send me to sit next to the trash cans, the day her perfect smile would turn into a scream of panic. But before reaching that moment, I had to endure something worse than the loss of objects. I had to endure the loss of my dignity in front of strangers. The remodeling ended in May. My house looked unrecognizable. Immaculate white walls, straight-line furniture without history. Everything spotless, everything cold, everything foreign. Jessica organized a housewarming gathering without asking me. "Mother-in-law, I'm going to bring my friends so they can see how it turned out. It is going to be something intimate, just a few glasses of wine. Is Saturday okay?" It was not a question. It was a notification. That Saturday, 5 women arrived, all Jessica's age, all dressed as if they were going to a fashion show. Heels, brand name bags, perfumes competing with each other to fill the space. I was in the kitchen preparing snacks. I had made cheese pastries my specialty. I thought at least I could contribute something in my own house. Jessica entered the kitchen with one of her friends. "Oh, mother-in-law, you should not have bothered. We ordered canapés from a gourmet boutique, but your pastries look rustic. Surely the girls will be curious to try homemade food." Homemade food, as if it were something quaint, something folkloric. Her friend looked at me with that smile I already knew. The smile of someone observing something curious but inferior. "Are you Michael's mom? Jessica has told us so much about you." "It is a pleasure," I replied, drying my hands on my apron. "You must be so proud of your son. Jessica says you made a great sacrifice to educate him. You sold preserves, right? How admirable to work with your hands. Work with your hands, as if it were a fun anecdote to tell at their elegant dinners. In the living room, the other women toured my house, commenting out loud, "Look at this transformation. Before this looked like a country house, right, Bane?" Totally. My mother-in-law has very traditional tastes, but we managed to modernize it without losing its humble essence. Laughter, glasses clinking. I came out of the kitchen with the tray of pastries. Jessica intercepted me in the hallway. "Mother-in-law, why do not you stay in the kitchen? We are talking about work things, digital marketing, brand strategies. We do not want to bore you with topics you are not going to understand." I stayed in the kitchen, like the maid in my own house. From there, I heard their voices, their laughter, their comments. Michael is a sweetheart, but the in-laws are quite a topic. I understand you perfectly. Mine are also from the sticks. The important thing is that he has ambitions, that he wants to grow, not stay stuck in that poverty mentality. I squeezed the edge of the sink until my knuckles turned white. I breathed deep. I smiled and kept washing dishes. But in my floral notebook that night, I noted every word, every humiliation, every laugh. The visits became frequent. Jessica used my house as a meeting center. I became the decorative figure, the quaint mother-in-law they could show off when they wanted to feel generous. "Look, this is Martha, my husband's mom. She is the one who makes those artisanal preserves. You should try them. They are very authentic." Authentic. That word became her favorite, as if I were a folkloric artifact. One day, Jessica brought a reporter from a social magazine. They were doing an article on businesswomen who support their communities. "I want you to meet my mother-in-law," Jessica told the reporter. "It is an inspiring story. A woman without formal education who managed to raise her son selling jams." The reporter interviewed me while Jessica posed in the background as if she were the protagonist of my story. "How many years did you study Mrs. Martha?" "I finished high school." "How brave to move forward without higher education." "And how did you learn to make preserves?" "My grandmother taught me." "Precious. Family traditions." "And you never thought about professionalizing? Studying gastronomy, for example?" Before I could answer, Jessica interrupted. "It is just that at her age, and coming from where she comes from, formal education was not a priority. But look how far she got only with her hands. It is admirable, the resilience of humble people." Humble people. As if it were a different category of human being. The article came out 2 weeks later, a small column in the inspiration section. My photo appeared blurry in the background. In the foreground, Jessica smiling with a caption that read, "Jessica Parker, of Davis entrepreneur and philanthropist, alongside her mother-in-law, Martha, example of overcoming." Michael shared it on his social networks, proud of these two strong women in my life. I said nothing, but I kept the clipping. Not for pride, as evidence. Family dinners became my worst nightmare. Jessica insisted that I cook. "Nobody makes stew like you, mother-in-law. My parents are dying to try it. I spent 2 days preparing. I bought the ingredients with my money. I cooked from dawn." The dinner was at my house, but I did not sit at the main table. "Mother-in-law, will you serve us?" It is just that with so many people, it is more practical for you to be close to the kitchen. I served. I reheated. I brought more bread. I cleared plates. While the Parker family ate my food, they talked about their vacations in Europe, about their investments, about the private schools where their future grandchildren would study. Michael laughed with them. My son, who had grown up eating reheated beans 3 days in a row, now joked about French wines that cost more than my monthly rent. One night, Jessica's father called me to the table. "Martha, I have to congratulate you. This stew is exquisite. Michael told us you sell preserves. Have you thought about expanding? I have contacts in supermarkets. Of course you would have to make some changes. More professional packaging, brand image, maybe a logo, less artisanal. Less artisanal. Another elegant way of saying less poor. Thank you, Mr. Parker, but my business is doing well as it is." Sure, the comfort of the local market. I understand not everyone has ambitions to grow." Jessica smiled from her chair, a smile of victory. That night, after everyone left, I found the kitchen destroyed, dirty dishes piled up, food spilled on the stove, napkins crumpled on the floor. I cleaned until 2 in the morning, and in my notebook with a trembling hand, I wrote, "I no longer recognize my son. The woman he loves is turning him into someone who despises where he comes from, and I am allowing it." But the worst had not yet arrived, because Jessica did not only want to humiliate me in private, she wanted to exhibit me, turn me into her charity project, into her story of I helped the poor mother-in-law, and the perfect stage for her last humiliation would be my son's birthday. A party of 60 guests where she would look like the perfect wife, the generous daughter-in-law, the woman who modernized her husband's family. And I would be the decorative figure, the quaint mother-in-law, the woman who was once important, but who was now extra. Except that this time I carried something in my hands, a gift wrapped in terracotta paper, and inside that gift there was something Jessica never saw coming. Something that would change everything. Let us return to that Saturday, to Michael's 38th birthday. I had planned this moment for 3 months. Every detail, every word I would not say, every silence that would speak for me. I woke up at 5 in the morning, not from nerves, from habit. 30 years getting up before dawn do not erase easily. I prepared pot coffee. I sat in my modern and cold kitchen that no longer smelled of cinnamon or memories, and I checked the contents of my gift for the last time. A handmade envelope. I had made it myself with matte paper terracotta color. I had glued every edge with care, decorated with a jute ribbon. Nothing fancy, but made with intention. Inside were 3 documents. The first, the original deeds to my house. The house where Michael had grown up. The house Jessica had modernized. The house she planned to sell when they put me in a nursing home. 2 years ago, when Michael turned 36, I had gone to a notary. I had been thinking about it for months. He was my only son, my heir. Everything I had would one day be his, so I put the house in his name. But I was not naive. I included a clause the notary helped me draft, life estate. I could live in that house until my death. Nobody could sell it, rent it, or modify it without my consent while I was alive. The house was Michael's on paper, but in reality, it was still mine. I never told him. I kept the deeds in a safety deposit box, waiting for the right moment. The second document was a bank account statement. My preserves business had grown more than anyone imagined. While Jessica presented me as the mother-in-law who sells jams, I had closed a distribution contract with a regional supermarket chain. My products were now sold in 200 points of sale. Martha's Preserves. That was the trade name, with logo, barcode, health registry, everything legal and professional. In my bank account, there was $200,000. And I had a signed contract for 3 more years, projected income $400,000. Jessica had made fun of my little village business while I built a silent empire. The third document was the distribution contract, with official letterhead, with my full name as the sole owner of the company. I put the 3 papers in the terracotta envelope. I closed it. I tied it with the ribbon, and I dressed for the party. I did not wear anything elegant, a simple bone-colored cotton dress, my comfortable shoes, no makeup, no jewelry. I wanted to look exactly as Jessica expected, a simple old woman who did not understand fashion or appearances. I arrived at the garden at 6 in the afternoon. The party started at 7, but I knew Jessica would be there early, supervising every detail. And there she was, dressed in an ivory tailored suit that must have cost $2,000. Hair tied in a perfect bun, white gold earrings, 4-inch heels. She saw me arrive, and her smile tensed just a second. Then she composed herself. "Mother-in-law, good thing you arrived early. That way you can help me supervise the waiters setting the tables properly." I did not answer. I just nodded. I spent the next hour watching them transform the garden into a magazine setting. White flowers in every corner, hanging lights, tables with linen tablecloths, crystal glasses, silverware, $10,000 in catering. I knew because I heard Jessica talking to the coordinator. $10,000 to celebrate my son, while I had raised him on beans and rice. The guests began to arrive. People I did not know, colleagues of Michael, friends of Jessica, the entire Parker family. Michael greeted me with a quick kiss on the cheek. "Mom, thanks for coming. You look good. Not I missed you. Not good to see you. Just thanks for coming." As if I were an obligatory guest. "Happy birthday, son." I extended my gift, the terracotta envelope. He looked at it with that expression I already knew, a mix of condescending tenderness and shame. "Oh, Mom, you should not have. Leave it over there and I will open it later. It is important, Michael. Open it now." "Mom, I have to greet the guests." "Later?" "Yes." He took it from my hands without really looking at it. He left it on a side table next to other gifts, boxes wrapped in shiny paper with huge bows. My handmade envelope looked small, humble, out of place, just like me. Jessica approached. Her perfume arrived before her. "Mother-in-law dinner is almost starting. Come, I will show you where you are going to sit." I walked behind her. We passed the main table where Michael's seat of honor was. We passed the tables decorated with flower centerpieces. We passed the orchestra area. We kept walking toward the back of the garden, and then she stopped. Next to a service door, next to a tarp covering the trash cans. Here, there was a folding chair, alone. No table, no tablecloth. "I thought you would feel more comfortable away from the main table," she said, looking me directly in the eyes, no longer smiling without masks. "You know, with all those important people, we do not want you to feel out of place." The entire garden seemed to have stopped. Some nearby guests turned. I saw their expressions: surprise, discomfort, pity. But nobody said anything, not even Michael, who was less than 30 feet away laughing with his friends. I looked at Jessica. I looked at the chair next to the trash. I looked at my son, who had turned his back on me. And in that moment, something inside me broke definitively, not with pain, with clarity. The clarity of someone who finally understands she has been fighting for something that no longer exists. I walked back to the table where Michael had left my gift. I took it, and I headed for the exit without saying a word. I heard murmurs. "Is not that Michael's mom? What happened? Is she leaving?" I kept walking. My car was 50 yards away. The keys in my purse, 40 yards, 30, and then I heard the scream, high-pitched, terrified, full of panic. "Michael, Michael, come here now." It was Jessica. I stopped. I did not turn around, but I stopped. "Martha, Mrs. Martha." Wait, now she used my name, not mother-in-law, my full name. I heard footsteps running behind me, confused voices, the murmur of 60 guests wondering what was happening. A hand touched my shoulder. Michael, pale, confused. "Mom, what is happening? Jessica is..." She found... What is this? In his hand trembled the terracotta envelope, opened, the 3 documents visible. Behind him, Jessica ran with her impossible heels. She had red cheeks, eyes wide. "Why did not you tell me?" she screamed. "Why did you never say anything?" I turned slowly. I looked at both of them. At my son, who was just beginning to understand. At my daughter-in-law, who had finally lost control. And I smiled. For the first time in 4 years, I smiled for real. 60 pairs of eyes looked at us. The orchestra had stopped playing. The waiters had stopped with trays high. The entire garden had become a frozen stage, and I was in the center. "Mom," Michael repeated with a trembling voice. "What is all this?" I looked at the papers in his hands, the house deeds, the bank statement, the distribution contract. "It is your birthday gift, son." I thought it was time you knew the truth. Jessica pushed her way next to Michael. Her mascara was running. Her hands were shaking. "This cannot be real. It is fake. It has to be fake." "It is completely real," I said with a calm I did not know I possessed. "You can verify every document with Notary Public number 23 of Chicago or with First National Bank, or with the neighborhood supermarket's my authorized distributor. Michael read the papers as if they were in another language. His lips moved without making a sound. Jessica's mother approached. That cold woman who had looked at me with contempt at the wedding. Let me see that. She snatched the papers from Michael's hands. Her eyes scanned every line, every figure. This says $200,000 liquid and $400,000 projected I completed. That is right. My jam business, as you call it, generates that and more every year. Jessica's father approached too. He took the distribution contract, read it, turned to see me. You are the owner of Martha's Preserves. The sole owner, founder, administrator, everything. But in the magazine, Jessica stuttered. In the article, you said you only sold in markets. I never said that. You said it for me. I just smiled and let you think what you wanted. The guests began to approach, forming a circle. A woman I recognized as a marketing manager for some company covered her mouth with her hand. Wait, Martha's Preserves? The gourmet jams that are in Whole Foods? That Martha is you? That is right. But those preserves they are premium. They are in the gourmet section. They cost between $8 and $10 a jar. $9 on average, I corrected, with a profit margin of 60% after production and distribution costs. A thick silence fell over the garden. Michael finally spoke. His voice sounded broken. Why did you never tell me you had grown so much? I looked at him, at my son, at the boy I had carried in my arms, at the young man who had promised to take care of me always. Why did you stop asking Michael? For 4 years you have not asked me how my business is. You just assume I am still the same market vendor you knew in your childhood. But I thought... You thought what your wife told you to think. Jessica took a step back as if I had slapped her. That is not fair. Just what? My voice rose in volume. I did not scream, but there was steel in every word. Just renovated my house without my permission? Just threw away my grandmother's quilt? Just sent me to sit next to the trash on my son's birthday? The murmurs exploded. Some guests looked at each other horrified. An older woman, probably someone's aunt, shook her head indignant. You did what? Asked Jessica's mother, looking at her daughter. Mom, I did not... It was a misunderstanding. It was not a misunderstanding, I interrupted her. It was deliberate, calculated. For 4 years you have treated me as if I were your charity project, the poor mother-in-law who needed your help, the ignorant woman who did not understand business or life. I took out the floral notebook from my purse. It was worn at the corners full of notes. I have recorded every comment, every humiliation, every time you called me humble people in front of your friends, every time you said my house looked like it was from the sticks, every object you made disappear for my own good. I opened the notebook to a random page and read aloud. June 8th. Jessica brought 3 friends. She introduced me as the mother-in-law who never studied but has skillful hands. Textual comment. It is admirable how uneducated people find ways to survive. I turned the page. July 22nd. Family dinner. I served for 2 hours. Nobody invited me to sit down, Mr. Parker said. Not everyone has ambitions to grow. He referred to me. Another page. September 3rd. Jessica told her mother on the phone, quoting textually, in 2 years we convince her to move to a nursing home. The house will eventually be ours. The garden exploded in scandalized murmurs. Jessica's mother went pale. You said that? Mom, it was taken out of context. I have recordings. I dropped the final bomb. All heads turned toward me. Since I heard that conversation, I started recording. I have audio from 3 months, conversations where you plan to sell my house, where you discuss how to get rid of me, where you mock my manners, my way of speaking, my clothes. I took out my cell phone, an old model one of those Jessica had looked at with pity, but it worked perfectly to record. Do you want to listen? No, whispered Jessica. Tears began to run down her cheeks, dragging the perfect makeup. "Please, no. Please," I repeated. "Now you say please? Where was your please when you sent me to sit next to the trash?" Michael let himself fall into a chair. He had his head in his hands. "My God, Mom, I did not know any of this. You knew," I said softly. "Maybe not the details, but you knew. You were there every time she humiliated me, every time she made me feel small, and you chose not to see it because it was more comfortable. I thought you guys got along well. You thought what you wanted to think, just like you thought I was a poor old woman who needed your pity. I lifted the house deeds. This house that your wife criticized so much that she remodeled without my permission that they plan to sell is already yours, Michael. I signed it over to you 2 years ago. It is legally in your name." His head snapped up. "What? I wanted you to have security. I wanted you to know that everything I built was for you. But I included a clause, life estate. I live there until I die. Nobody can sell it, rent it, or modify it without my consent, not even you." Jessica emitted a strange sound, something between a sob and a choked scream. "Why?" she asked with a broken voice. "Why did you do this? Why did I unmask you?" I stared at her, because there came a moment when sitting next to the trash stopped being a humiliation and became a perfect metaphor. You put me there thinking that was my place, but the trash was not me, Jessica. It was the way you treated me. I turned toward the guests who watched us in sepulchral silence. "Excuse me for ruining this celebration, but I can no longer keep pretending everything is fine. I can no longer keep smiling while I am treated as if I were invisible." I began to walk toward my car again. This time, nobody stopped me, but before leaving the garden, I paused. I turned one last time. "Happy birthday, Michael. Enjoy your party." And I left. I left behind the elegant garden, the imported flowers, the confused waiters, the 60 guests murmuring, scandalized. I left my son with his head in his hands, and I left Jessica crying with her perfection destroyed and her true face finally exposed. But this story does not end there, because what came next was even more revealing. I arrived at my house at 9 at night, my modern and cold house that still did not feel like home. I took off my shoes. I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the minimalist sofa that had replaced the furniture where David and I sat every night. I did not cry. I had no tears left for this. I simply waited. I knew he would come. It was inevitable. The doorbell rang at 11:15 at night. I opened the door, and there was Michael, alone without Jessica, with red eyes and loosened tie. He seemed to have aged 10 years in 4 hours. "Mom." I stepped aside. He entered without looking at me. He let himself fall on the sofa and covered his face with his hands. The guests left. Everyone. In less than an hour, the garden was empty. Jessica's parents left without saying goodbye. Her friends deleted the photos from social networks. It was humiliating. Humiliating, I repeated with a soft voice. "Do you know what is humiliating, son? That your own daughter-in-law sends you to sit next to the trash. That is humiliating." He shuddered as if I had hit him. "I did not know she had done that. I swear I did not see it." "You were 30 feet away laughing with your friends while I carried my dignity in pieces. Mom, please." "Please what, Michael?" I sat in front of him. "Do you want me to tell you it is okay? That nothing happened? I want to understand. Why did you never tell me your business had grown so much? Why did you keep the secret of the house? If you had told me, what would you have done differently?" I interrupted him. "Would you have defended your mother when Jessica called her humble people? Would you have stopped the renovation that destroyed every memory of your childhood? Would you have questioned why I served at dinners while you acted like the owners?" He closed his eyes. A tear ran down his cheek. I did not want to see it. "It was easier to think we were helping you, that Jessica was improving your life. Jessica did not want to improve my life. She wanted to erase me from yours." He remained silent for a long time. Outside, the sound of cars passing. The city that never sleeps. The life that went on even though my world had fractured. After you left, he said finally with a hoarse voice, Jessica collapsed, literally. She sat on the garden floor and began to cry. She could not stop. Her mother had to practically carry her to the car. And what did you do? I just stood there surrounded by tables with food nobody ate, gifts nobody delivered, and I realized something terrible. He looked up. His eyes were those of a lost child. I do not recognize you, Mom, but I do not recognize myself either. What do you mean? The woman who walked out of that garden with her head held high, that is my mother. The strong woman who raised me alone. The warrior who worked 18 hours a day to give me a better life. But me, I became someone who allows his own mother to be treated like that. He broke, completely. He sobbed with his head in his hands, body shaking. Dad would be ashamed of me. Those words pierced my chest like a knife. I got up. I sat next to him. And for the first time in 4 years, I hugged him like when he was a child. Your father loved you, Michael, and he would be proud of the man you worked to be. But yes, he would be disappointed in the man you let yourself become. How did we get here? He whispered against my shoulder. How did I allow this to happen? Because you fell in love with a woman who made you feel that you came from a place you should be ashamed of. And little by little you began to believe her. He separated from me. He wiped his tears with the back of his hand. I need to show you something. He took out his phone, opened a WhatsApp conversation. It was a family group I did not know. Parker Davis family said the name. Jessica added me to this group 2 years ago. It is her family, her cousins, aunts, her mother. Look what they wrote. He began to read messages, each worse than the last. Cousin Lucy. I saw your mother-in-law at the market selling her little jars. What a shame Michael has that family. Aunt Bertha, did they convince the boy to put the lady in a nursing home yet? My friend knows a cheap one downtown. Cousin Andrea. Jessica, you have the patience of a saint. I would not stand such a tacky mother-in-law. My blood ran cold. And you knew about these messages? No, I never checked that group. Just today after the party I went in to look. There are hundreds of messages like that, years of mockery, of plans, of... His voice broke again. Of horrible things, Mom. Did Jessica participate? She started them. Most come from her. He took a deep breath. There is more. I found emails on the computer we share. Jessica contacted a lawyer 6 months ago. She asked about procedures to declare someone senile to obtain legal guardianship to... He could not finish. To lock me up, I completed. To declare me incapable and take control of my assets. He nodded, unable to look me in the eyes. There are drafts of documents, fake psychiatric evaluations she planned to use, contacts of nursing homes, budgets, everything planned. The silence that followed was overwhelming. What are you going to do? I asked finally. I do not know. She is my wife. I married before God. God did not ask you to betray your mother, Michael. I know, but it is just that for 4 years, I built a life with her. We have plans. We talk about having children, about buying a house in the suburbs, about selling your mother's house to finance those dreams. He shuddered. She said it was best for everyone that you would be better off in a place where they took care of you, that the house was worth a lot, and we could invest that money that you no longer had the energy to live alone. And you believed her? I wanted to believe her, because the alternative was accepting that I married someone capable of this. I got up. I walked to the kitchen. I needed to move. I needed to process that my son had been about to sign my exile. Mom, he followed me. What was in that envelope besides the documents? You said you had recordings. I have them. What do they talk about? What else did they say? I looked at him long and hard, trying to decide how much truth he could handle. How much more did he need to hear before he made a decision? There is a particular conversation, I said slowly, from last month. Jessica was talking to her mother. They were in the living room. I arrived early and heard them before they noticed my presence. What were they saying? Jessica asked her mother how much time was prudent to wait after putting someone in a home before selling their properties. Her mother replied, 6 months, so it does not look suspicious. And make sure the place is far away, that she cannot cause problems. The color left Michael's face. No, that cannot be. Then Jessica said, and I quote this textually because I have listened to it 20 times, the good thing is that Michael is so busy with work he will not even notice when she disappears. And if he asks, we tell him she is happy in her new home with people of her level. Michael let himself fall against the wall. His legs did not hold him anymore. People of her level, he repeated with horror. They talked about you as if you were trash that had to be taken out. Yes. He covered his mouth with his hand. For a moment, I thought he would vomit. I have that recording saved in 3 different places, I continued, and I am not the only one who has heard it. My lawyer has a copy, my accountant has a copy, and the manager of my bank has specific instructions. If something happens to me, if I end up interned somewhere against my will, if I disappear mysteriously, those recordings go directly to the district attorney. District attorney. What Jessica planned is a crime, Michael. Fraud, forced displacement of a vulnerable person, misappropriation. A lawyer explained everything to me. If I had signed those papers, she prepared. If she had declared me senile, I would have been the victim of a crime. My son slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor. He looked like a broken doll. 4 years, he murmured. 4 years married to a stranger. I sat on the floor next to him, like when he was a child and fell playing when the world seemed too big and terrifying. The question now is, what are you going to do with that information? He looked up at me, and in his eyes I saw the 7-year-old boy who had lost his father, scared, lost, looking for his mother to tell him what to do. But he was no longer a boy. He was a man, and this decision had to be made by him alone. Michael stayed at my house that night. He slept on the sofa like when he was a teenager and had nightmares. Except now the nightmare was real and had a woman's name. I did not sleep. I stayed in my room staring at the ceiling, listening to his irregular breathing from the living room, wondering if I had done the right thing, if exposing everything like that in front of 60 people had been justice or revenge. But then I remembered the chair next to the trash cans, and the doubt vanished. At 6 a.m, I heard movement. I got up and found him in the kitchen making coffee. He was using the old coffee pot I had rescued before Jessica threw it away. "Good morning," I said softly. "I did not sleep at all," he replied without turning around. I could not stop thinking. "And what conclusion did you reach?" He poured 2 cups, handed me one. The coffee smelled like home, like mornings from before when it was just the 2 of us against the world. "I am going to get a divorce." The words hung in the kitchen air. "Are you sure?" "Completely. I cannot stay married to someone capable of planning that, of treating you like that, of lying to me for years." He took a sip of coffee. His hands were trembling. "But there is something else I need to do first." "What?" "Confront her, but not alone. I need you to be there, Mom. I need her to see you, to understand that she can no longer manipulate me. Michael, you do not have to. Yes, I have to do it. For you, for Dad, for the man I am supposed to be." 3 hours later, we were in front of the apartment in downtown that Michael shared with Jessica. A modern building, 20 floors with a marble lobby and uniformed doorman. Michael opened the door with his key. We entered together. Jessica was in the living room. She was still wearing silk pajamas. She had not put on makeup. She had deep circles under her eyes and messy hair. When she saw us enter, she jumped to her feet. "Michael, thank God. I thought that we need to talk. Yesterday was a horrible misunderstanding. I never wanted—" "Sit down," interrupted Michael. His voice was different, cold, authoritative. Jessica obeyed. Her eyes jumped between the two of us, calculating, looking for an exit. "My mom stays standing," continued Michael. "Really?" He pointed to the gray velvet armchair that dominated the room. Jessica's spot, as they called it, where she sat to drink wine with her friends while they planned their perfect lives. I sat down. Jessica paled. Michael remained standing between the two, like a judge. "I am going to do this," only once he began. "I am going to give you the opportunity to tell the truth, the whole truth. No lies, no excuses, no manipulative tears. Michael, Did you plan to put my mother in a nursing home?" Silence. Answer. "I was exploring options for when she was older, for her own good. You declared her senile to a lawyer without her knowing. I did not get to. They were just consultations. Did you contact homes to budget her internment?" Tears began to roll down Jessica's cheeks, but this time they were not of sadness. They were of panic. "Michael, please, you have to understand the context. Did you tell your mother that I would not even notice when my own mother disappeared?" Jessica let out a sob. "I was angry. I said things I did not mean." "For 4 years?" Michael's voice rose. "Were you angry for 4 full years? Every time you called her mother-in-law? Every time you destroyed her memories? Every time you humiliated her in front of your friends? I just wanted the best for us," Jessica screamed, standing up. "That house is worth millions. We could sell it, invest, have a better life. You do not understand how hard it is for me to have a mother-in-law who sells jars in markets. My friends make fun. My family asks me why I allow her to live in such humble conditions. I was just trying to improve the situation. By sending her to sit next to the trash?" Jessica was left speechless. It was an impulse. I was stressed with the party, and throwing away her grandmother's quilt. Was that also an impulse? It was an old rag, and disappearing my father's photos and my grandfather's watch. We needed space. And convincing your family that my mother was an embarrassment? Jessica began to cry uncontrollably. She let herself fall on the sofa. "I did not want it to be like this. At first I loved you. I really loved you. But then my family started making comments about your origins, about your mother, and I felt I had to choose between you and my family, and you chose," I said for the first time. Both turned to look at me. "You chose to believe we were inferior, that we embarrassed your last name, that we had to be erased or hidden. It is not that. It is exactly that, Jessica. And the saddest thing is that you convinced my son that he should be ashamed too." Michael took some papers out of his backpack. He put them on the coffee table. "These are divorce papers. I filled them out last night. They just need your signature." Jessica looked at him horrified. "What? No. Michael, no. We can go to therapy. We can fix this. I love you. We are a team. A team does not plan to destroy the other's mother. But I was not going to actually do it. They were just ideas, thoughts. I never would have done it. The lawyer you consulted says differently. The emails you sent say differently. The conversations with your mother say differently." He took a deep breath. "You have 2 options. You sign these papers today, and this ends in silence. We separate assets, everyone takes their own, and we go on with our lives. Or you force me to do this the legal way, and then I present all the recordings, all the emails, all the evidence of what you plan to do, and that becomes public, very public." "Are you threatening me?" whispered Jessica. "I am giving you a dignified exit. More than you gave my mother." Jessica looked at me. There was pure hatred in her eyes. Nothing remained of the veneer of kindness. "This is your fault," she spat at me. "If you had stayed in your place, if you had accepted that you do not belong to our world, none of this would have happened. My place," I repeated slowly, "was never next to the trash cans, Jessica. My place is next to my son, and if he decides he no longer wants me there, it will be his decision, not yours." I got up from the armchair. I walked to the door. "I will let you talk. Michael." I will be in the car. I went down to the parking lot. I sat in my old Chevy that Jessica had always criticized for being so humble, and I waited. 45 minutes later, Michael came out of the building. He was carrying a large suitcase, and in his hand the signed divorce papers. He got into the car, closed the door, and stared straight ahead in silence. "Did she sign?" I asked. "She signed, with one condition." "Which one?" "That you not make the recordings public, that this not reach her social networks or her job. She is afraid of losing her employment, her reputation. And what did you say? That it depended on you, that I do not control what you do with your evidence." I looked at him. My son, who was finally on the right side. I am not going to publish anything I said. I do not need to destroy her publicly. She already destroyed herself in front of 60 witnesses. That is enough. Michael nodded. A tear ran down his cheek. "Can I stay with you a while, just until I find a place?" "You can stay as long as you need. It is your house, Michael. It always was. It always will be." He started the car. He drove in silence for 20 minutes. Then he spoke with a broken voice. "Dad would have known what to do. He always knew how to protect you. Your father taught you to work hard, to be honest, to fight for what you love. The rest you learned alone. And today you learned the most important lesson, that true love does not ask you to betray the one who gave you life." He drove to the house, our house, where he had grown up, where I had cried, where together we had survived. And as we climbed the stairs with his suitcase, I knew this was not an end. It was a new beginning. But the story did not end there, because Jessica had one last ace up her sleeve, and when she played it, she almost destroyed everything we had rebuilt. 2 weeks after Michael moved back home, things began to normalize. He slept in his old room. I made him coffee every morning. We talked, laughed, cried, healed. But I knew peace would not last. I knew women like Jessica. They do not accept defeat. They do not leave in silence. The blow came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at my shop supervising a new batch of peach jam when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Mrs. Martha Robinson?" "Yes, speaking. This is Attorney Mendez from Duran and Associates. I represent Mrs. Jessica Parker. I have in my hands a lawsuit against you for defamation, moral damages, and harassment." The world stopped. "Excuse me?" "My client alleges that you exposed her publicly with false information, causing irreparable damage to her personal and professional reputation. She is suing for compensation of $1,200,000 plus a public apology." I sat in the nearest chair. "Nothing I said was false. I have proof of everything. That will be determined by a judge, ma'am. You have 10 days to respond formally through your lawyer. Good day." He hung up. I stared at the phone with trembling hands. Jessica was suing me. After everything she had done, she was suing me. I called Michael immediately. "I know Mom. Her lawyer called me an hour ago. He wants me to testify in her favor. He says I was a victim of psychological manipulation and that you poisoned our relationship." "What did you tell him?" "That he can go to hell." That night, sitting at the kitchen table with all the documents scattered, we evaluated the situation. "She is desperate," said Michael. "She lost her marriage, probably lost the respect of her family, and now she is attacking because it is the only thing she has left. But can she win?" "I do not know, Mom. The law is complicated. If a judge decides that exposing her publicly was excessive, then she will take everything I built to defend herself." Fear settled in my stomach like a cold stone. I hired a lawyer, a woman named Gabriela Torres, a specialist in family law. I showed her everything. The recordings, the notebook, the emails Michael had found, the conversations from the Parker family group. Gabriella listened to every audio, read every note, and when she finished, she smiled. "Mrs. Martha, we are not only going to win, we are going to countersue." "What do you mean?" "What Jessica planned to do constitutes several crimes. anticipated fraud conspiracy to commit forced displacement, attempted misappropriation. We can present a countersuit, not only civil, but criminal. I do not want to put her in jail. It is not about putting her in jail. It is about proving she is not the victim and ensuring this ends definitively. The first hearing was 3 weeks later in a small family courtroom downtown. Jessica arrived dressed in black with dark glasses, accompanied by her lawyer and her mother. When she saw me, she looked away. Her lawyer presented the case. I had defamed his client, I had exposed private information, I had caused her to lose her marriage and social reputation. They asked for $1,200,000 in damages. Then it was Gabriella's turn. Your Honor, Mrs. Parker is not a victim of defamation. She is the perpetrator of a systematic plan of psychological abuse, anticipated misappropriation, and forced displacement. I have irrefutable proof. She put a thick folder on the judge's table. Audio number 1. Mrs. Parker discussing with her mother how to commit my client to a nursing home against her will. Audio number 2. Mrs. Parker consulting with a lawyer about declaring my client senile without her knowledge. Emails where she discusses the sale of my client's property. Family group messages where they systematically mock my client and her social origin. The judge opened the folder, began to read. His expression changed. Do you have the audios? All of them, Your Honor. And transcripts certified by an expert. Jessica's lawyer paled. Your Honor, those recordings were obtained without consent. In this state, interrupted Gabriella, a person can record conversations they are part of without requiring consent from the other participants. My client was present during these conversations. They are legal and admissible. The judge listened to the recordings in silence with a frown. When he finished, he looked at Jessica. Mrs. Parker, is it you speaking in these recordings? Jessica stammered. Those conversations are taken out of context. Is it your voice, yes or no? Yes, but... And is it true you consulted with a lawyer about interning Mrs. Robinson? I was just exploring options for the future. A future where Mrs. Robinson would be declared senile without her knowledge? Silence. The judge closed the folder with a dry thud. This lawsuit is frivolous and malicious. Not only do I dismiss it, but I order Mrs. Parker to pay the legal costs of the defense. Furthermore, I am sending a copy of this file to the district attorney so they can evaluate if criminal charges proceed. The gavel fell. Jessica jumped to her feet. This is unfair. She humiliated me in front of... Mrs. Parker interrupted the judge with a voice of steel. You humiliated this woman for 4 years. You took away her memories. You planned to steal her home. And when you were exposed, you tried to victimize yourself. This court does not tolerate that type of manipulation. Get out. Jessica ran out of the room, her mother behind her, her lawyer gathering papers hurriedly. I stayed seated, trembling. Is it over? I asked Gabriella. It is over. Michael, who had been sitting in the back of the room, approached and hugged me. It is over, Mom. Finally, it is over. But one last surprise was missing. 2 days later, I received a text message from an unknown number. It was a photo. In it, Jessica was seen entering an office building. The text said, Mrs. Martha, I am Marcella, one of Jessica's friends who was at the birthday party. I need to talk to you, please. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop. She was a woman of 30, elegant, but with a shamed expression. I do not know how to start, she said as soon as we sat down. I was complicit in everything. I laughed when Jessica made fun of you. I never defended you, and I hate myself for that. Why do you look for me now? Because what I saw that day changed me. I saw a woman with more dignity in her silence than all of us with our titles and last names together. And I realized that I also have a mother-in-law whom I treat with condescension, whom I make feel less. Her eyes broke. After the party, I spoke with my mother-in-law. I asked for forgiveness. For the first time, I really listened to her. And do you know what I discovered? That she is an incredible woman, that she has fascinating stories, that I was wasting the opportunity to know her because I was too busy feeling superior. I'm glad you learned something, I said sincerely. I did not come just to apologize. I came to tell you something important. Jessica is planning to leave the country. Her family is sending her to Spain. They are going to say it is for work, but in reality it is to hide from the shame. Let her go. She is no longer my problem. But there is something else. Before leaving, she is coming to your house. Tomorrow night. I heard her tell another friend she was going to recover something that belonged to her from the house. I do not know what it is, but it sounded threatening. I thanked Marcella, and that night I prepared my own plan. The next day, at 7 at night, I installed my phone in the living room recording. Michael hid in the kitchen, and I waited. At 8:30, the doorbell rang. I opened. There was Jessica, without makeup, sportswear, big bag on her shoulder. I came for Michael's things. He left here. Michael is here. You can ask him what he wants to take. I do not need to talk to him. Just give me his things and I leave. No? Her expression changed. The veneer of cordiality disappeared. Stupid old woman. Do you think you won? Do you think you destroyed my life? I did not destroy anything, Jessica. You did it alone. I had a perfect marriage, a perfect life, and you ruined everything because you could not stand your son being happy with someone of better class. My son was not happy. He was a puppet. He loved me. He loved the idea of belonging to your world. There is a difference. Jessica took something out of her bag, a folded paper. Do you know what this is? These are the original deeds to this house. The ones that were in the bookshelf before the remodel. I kept them. And if you do not give me what I came looking for, I destroy them. And without them, you cannot prove Michael is the legal owner. I smiled, and from my pocket, I took out my phone. Do you know what this is, Jessica? It is a recording of the last 3 minutes where you just confessed to stealing legal documents from my house. That is called aggravated robbery. Her face lost all color. You are lying. You are not recording. Michael came out of the kitchen. She is recording. And so am I. Jessica stepped back as if slapped. Give me those deeds, said Michael, extending his hand. Now. Or what? You are no longer my husband. You cannot force me. No, but the police can, and they are a phone call away. Jessica looked at the deeds in her hand. Then she looked at us, and finally understood she had lost. She dropped the papers to the floor, turned around, and before leaving, she said, I hope you are happy in your humble little house, both together, as poor in spirit as always. We are not poor, Jessica, I said softly. We have something you never had, dignity that does not need to humiliate others to exist. The door closed behind her, and we never saw her again. 6 months later, my life had changed in ways I never imagined. Martha's Preserves kept growing. I opened a second shop. I hired 5 employees, all older women who needed work. Women society had discarded because of their age. I taught them my recipes, my secrets, everything my grandmother had taught me. And each of them called me Mrs. Martha. Not mother-in-law, not with condescension, with real respect. Michael got a new job at a smaller company, but with a better environment. He still lived with me. Just until I find an apartment, he said. But we both knew the truth. Neither wanted to separate yet. We had lost 4 years. We needed to recover time. One afternoon, while we prepared apple butter together in the kitchen, he had insisted on learning. He told me, I met someone. My heart skipped a beat. Yes? Her name is Sarah. She's an elementary school teacher. Simple, kind. And yesterday, when I told her our whole story, do you know what she said? What? That she wanted to meet you. That a woman who had built an empire from scratch while raising a son alone was someone she admired, not someone to be ashamed of. My eyes filled with tears. And what did you tell her? That I would bring her to dinner Sunday, and that she better be ready because my mom cooks like the angels but interrogates like a detective. We laughed together, like we had not laughed in years. On Sunday, Sarah arrived with flowers, not expensive roses, simple carnations from the market. She hugged me as if she had known me forever. "Mrs. Martha, it is an honor. Michael has told me so much. Hope not everything," I joked. "All the important stuff. That you are a warrior, that you never gave up, that you taught your son the true meaning of family." We dined at the kitchen table, not in an elegant restaurant, not with crystal glasses, with mismatched plates, lemonade in clay jars, and handmade bread. And for the first time in 4 years, I felt my house was becoming a home again. 3 months later, Michael and Sarah gave me news. "Mom, we are getting married." Nothing big, just something intimate, close family, and we want it to be here, in this house, in the garden where he played when he was a boy. I cried. I hugged my son. I hugged Sarah. "Are you sure?" I asked him that night when Sarah left, after everything that happened. I am sure precisely because of everything that happened. I learned to recognize real love. And Sarah is real mom. She does not want to change me. She does not want me to be ashamed of you. She wants to build something true. The wedding was a Saturday in May. 30 guests in our garden. Marigolds because Sarah said they were her grandmother's favorites. Bluegrass music, pot roast that the 3 of us prepared. When the judge asked if anyone opposed the union, there was a moment of tense silence. Some guests looked at me, remembering what had happened in the previous marriage. I stood up. "I want to say something." Michael paled. Sarah looked at me with pleading eyes. "I want to say that this time when I give my blessing to this marriage, I do it with a whole heart. Because Sarah did not come to erase us. She came to add. And that is what true love does. It adds, it does not subtract." Applause filled the garden. Michael hugged me crying. "Thanks, Mom, for not giving up on me, for waiting for me. Children are not an investment, my love. They are an act of faith. And my faith in you never died. It just hid for a while." That night, when everyone left and the house was silent, I sat in the garden, in the same place where Jessica once sent me next to the trash cans. But now there were flowers there, and a bench Michael had built with his own hands. I looked at the stars, and I spoke to David like I did sometimes. We made it love. Our son found his way back. It was not easy. It was not fast. But he returned. The wind blew soft, the flowers swayed, and I knew he heard me. Because in the end, true wealth is not in what you possess, but in what you do not allow them to take from you. And I did not allow them to take my dignity. I did not allow them to take my worth. And above all, I did not allow them to take my son. There was a moment when I was sitting next to the trash, but I got up. And by getting up, I taught everyone a lesson they will never forget. That a 67-year-old woman who has survived death, poverty, and betrayal is the most dangerous woman that exists, because she no longer has anything to lose and everything to prove. If this story touched your heart, if you have ever felt invisible, humiliated, or belittled by your own family, leave me your words in the comments. Tell me from what part of the world you accompany us. Sometimes knowing we are not alone in our pain is the first step to healing. Like if you believe dignity has no price. And subscribe to this channel because we will keep sharing stories of women who got up when the world told them to stay on the ground. Remember, true love never asks you to betray your essence, and the family that belittles you does not deserve the honor of your presence. Until the next story, God bless you.